Chapter 3. The first snows came early that year, powdering hedgerows, silvering plow scars, turning the stubble of harvested fields into combs of light. Smoke stood straight from farmhouse chimneys before the wind bent it east. The elder vampire Worm drove his army like a spike into the kingdom of the dwarves and their king, Rockland. The undead went first, ranked skeletons with shields from nations of all sides, then zombies in peasants' clothes and millers' aprons, the whole line moving with a patience that eased courage of their opposition. Behind them, death knights rode undead horses that steamed in the cold. Above them, vampires and undead dragons circled the sky. On a stone overhang, King Rockland braced his people 2 shields deep. "Hold," he said, and the first rank planted. "Steel," he said, and the second rank raised their axes. The first wave broke like pottery against stone, became a ramp of bone and flesh under the boots of those who followed. The air grew hot with pitch, catapult pots fell and burst, necrotic fire burned snowed hillsides, turning dirt to glass. A dwarf captain's beard caught, he snuffed it in his fist without changing the beat of his axe. "This battle will cost us," he cried to King Rockland. "Aye," Rockland grunted. "We're gonna be in debt," he laughed. The undead dragon stooped again, until horns blew from the north, and a white-laced wedge of cavalry smashed into Worm's rearguard. Lord Kilburn raced on the mountain road, his banner almost flat by speed, visor up so his voice could carry. "Put the dead to rest, lads," he barked, and the wedge closed. Skeletal ranks splintered, death knights wheeled and met blades. In the confusion, a zombie dragon dove to burn the newcomers, and took a golden javelin launched by Lord Kilburn. Through its mouth, its blood-covered tip spouting from the back of the dragon's head. It slammed into a slope, causing an avalanche over Worm's armies. Kilburn carved a path to a figure kneeling in steam and cinder. He swung down, grabbed the dwarven king by his beard, and hauled. "On your feet, King Rockland. This is no time to fall short. Get it, like you," he laughed. Rockland came up with a second wind. "Maybe you would have shown earlier had you not spent so much time grooming your mustache," he said, then broke a death knight's helm with the hilt of his axe, and did not look to see if the skull inside had liked the joke. Dwarves gathered to their king, humans rallied to Kilburn, and together they pierced a hole through the opposition, through a tangle of blistered pines, and straight across the dragon's shadow. A rock loomed from the fog like a tower walking and tore a manticore out of the air. The beast crashed into the undead ranks, taking out a dozen of them. Worm raised a hand defeated and pulled his line back in measured bleeding order. The dwarves did not fall. When the fires guttered and the light went thin, Rockland sat with his mail steaming and counted his living as if counting gold. Kilburn leaned against his horse's damp neck and laughed once, relief cracking his iron composure. "Late," Rockland said finally. "But thanks. You'll have our steel for it," King Rockland told Kilburn. "And our debts," he spat into his palm and offered the hand. "Send word to Roland. The iron mines are his." Victory did not slow the war, it multiplied it. Like fat spitting from a fire, skirmishes leapt wide. Rebellions quelled against Archibald from noble lords. Near the Misty Isles, Albert Newton and his sorcerers dueled opposing warlocks with elements versus dark magic. The northern marches, Sir Gallen assisted rebel leader Eric von Stromgard, where they fought barbarian raiders in a narrow, where the road and river were stained with blood from endless battles. Lances broke and swords clanged with every strike. Gallant smiled, it never left his lips. He was liked by many, confident or arrogant, but most of all, he was dangerous to the enemy. He battled the barbarians, and eventually encountering Chief Atlas, a large, strong man with a neck thick as a dragon's leg and could break bones with a single punch. Eventually, smiling the whole time, Gallant defeated the giant and held his head by the braid before decapitating it. At the Mire's Rim, Grand Warlock Falagar conducted a choir of warlocks whose fingers beat the air like metronomes. A line of pikemen sagged as a dark force dragged at their hearts. until Sister Eliza stepped into the mud with monks in sandals and moved her hands like a woman smoothing a crying child. Their chant did not fight the warlock harmony, it covered it, clear tone laid over rot. Spheres of light covered the pikemen, pushing back the dispelling the dark magics. Above the Silver Cove cliffs, Fatana rode the wind with phoenixes shedding fiery feathers. They stooped shrieking onto a convoy of minotaurs. They were careful not to dive too low because a single swipe from the minotaurs can easily destroy them. For Roland, for Enroth, Fatana cried. East of Kriegspire, the necromancer Sandro cast an army out of fallen townsfolk and soldiers. Ambrose's scouts reported a host. Ambrose squinted through the snow. The wind blew unnaturally. The fear in the horses was evident, but he felt an itch in his palms. He and his men charged and caught the undead out of position. Specters folded to silver blades. Sandro's skeletal dragons tried to lift him clear and cover his escape, but found themselves full of arrows. The bone dragons fell, but Sandro was nowhere to be found. Moving toward Blackshare, Brother Brax, blue skin lacquered by torchlight, blood-red robes drinking daylight, took the crossroads by strength, vigor, and persistence. His trolls lifted a portcullis. The gate rose, and ogres shouldered through with bloodlusted joy. In the yard, Captain Tyro, an ogre himself who was captured after being defeated by Morglan many years ago, stood there. He now fought for Roland, and dared the invading forces to step into his keep. Many did not step out. Brax withdrew with 2 fingers pressed to his lip, casting curses on the defenders. Everywhere the kingdom paid its dues with blood. Roland convened at last in a sheepskin tent. Lord Hart kept one knuckle on the table as if testing a shield for hidden faults. Tanir stood near the lamp with ink on his fingers, and a look that said he'd written truths tonight he would not have dared yesterday. Rockland came in with forge heat still living in his beard and set his axe on the trestle. "We can't keep putting out these fires," Hart said. "We need a blow that cuts at the root." "The Ashen Causeway," Tanir said, tapping a brown smear on the map where road crossed marsh. "Necromancers move armies through it. It's the largest pathway across, preventing undead armies from sinking in the marsh." "Burn it," Hart said. Roland nodded in agreement. "Do it, while Corlegon tries to find new paths. We march on Free Haven. If the guilds close their books to Castle Iron Fist, Archibald's coin bleeds out the bottom." Rockland grunted, which for dwarves is agreement, amusement, and hunger in one syllable. "We've paste that's strong enough to liquefy stone. We'll teach your causeway dwarven mining tricks. Send word to Vatana for an aerial assault," Roland added. "Gallant and Eric von Stromgard hold the highlands. Tyro patches the crossroad. Tanir, your light belongs with my people. Turn the mire of the dam to a mouth with breath like a troll." Dwarven sappers came under mantlets that looked like blankets shouldering through fog. Rockland fingered jars of alchemic paste until they warmed under his callus, then pressed them into joints of the causeway as to not interrupt the dead marching above. "There," he said, satisfied. "That's the wick. Light it and run away like ye set your arse on fire," Rockland told his crew. The first detonation was heavy, a thump that mutilated limbs from the undead. Arches flexed, stones groaned, the causeway reshapened. The second detonation mimicked the first. The middle folded with the explosion, then collapsed into the mire's sludge. Far down the line, a column of torches came to an untidy halt. The Dwarven king and his sappers began to make their quiet escape. The Lich Sandro and his undead owned 2 banks and no bridge. By noon, Roland's vanguard had stealthily made their way across and toward Free Haven. Corlegon answered the destruction in the mire of the damned with battle. The Battle of Free Haven erupted in fire and faith beneath a sky choked with ash, as Roland Ironfist rode hard at the head of his banners, Lord Hart's mailed knights thundering beside him, while court wizard Tanir watched the walls with eyes already alight with spellcraft. They arrived to a city in open agony. In the market square, Anthony Stone stood amid broken icons and overturned carts, shouting hoarsely to his dwindling clerics, "Hold them! By the light, hold! As!" Regnan smugglers' crates burned and spilled weapons across the cobbles. The answer came in the scrape of bone on stone. Brother Brax advanced with his undead knights, shields locked, blades rising and falling with pitiless rhythm. Hostages were dragged forward, dockhands and acolytes bound with chains, and Brax's voice cut through the din. "Drop your arms, priest, or they die." Stone refused and steel answered. Clerics fell in brutal seconds, prayers were severed mid-breath. Stone was struck down, armor shattered, blood darkening the dust as panic rippled through the faithful. Then Roland's horn sounded. The square exploded into chaos. Heart waded in like a living engine, smashing undead from their feet while shouting orders that snapped men back into formation. Tenir tore Stone from the ground in a flare of light and barked, "Run, now." As Stone was borne away, Tenir turned to Brax. Their duel cracked the air, necromancy clawing against searing sigils, shattered stone raining from the facades. Tenir broke Brax's ranks and hurled him back, but the necromancer vanished into smoke and screaming horses. By dusk, Freehaven burned and bled, but its gates stood open to Roland. The city was claimed at terrible cost, by courage, fury, and the resolve to never kneel again. Roland walked the line with his helm under his arm and his hair stiff with sweat. With Freehaven liberated, and the Regnan weapons shipment taken, they were ready for Castle Iron Fist. "Tomorrow we finish this," Roland said. In Castle Iron Fist, Archibald listened to Corlagan's report without blinking. When the warlock finished, Archibald poured wine and looked at the red in the cup, as if consulting an oracle he despised. "The causeway was a mistake," he said. "The core of the undead army was unable to get to Castle Iron Fist in time because of it. An error," Corlagan allowed. "Errors are for fools," Archibald answered. "We will just have to do without the undead legions." He dismissed his general and went alone toward the basement. King Archibald's fury echoed through Castle Iron Fist like a living thing. News of Freehaven's fall had arrived soaked in failure. The undead cut off, the roads choked with Roland's banners, the rebellion tightening its noose. Snarling orders at trembling servants, Archibald descended beneath the keep, past doors never meant to be opened. The air thickened with rot and alchemy. Shelves sagged under vials of impossible colors, oils that crawled, vapors that screamed when uncorked. Mutilated limbs hung from hooks like butchered trophies, twitching as if remembering pain. The stink was unbearable. Copper, bile, old magic gone wrong. At the heart of it stood Agar. His chamber pulsed with wet sounds and low, hungry murmurs. Shapes stirred behind veils of glass and iron, chained silhouettes flexing too many joints. Archibald's voice cut sharp. "Are they ready?" Agar smiled without warmth. "My children?" He turned, eyes reflecting sickly light. "No, but they have matured enough to recognize where their loyalties lie." From the shadows came a chorus of breath and scrape. Acknowledgement, not obedience. Archibald clenched his fists. "Finish your work," he commanded. "Roland will reach the keep soon." I bowed slightly, already reaching for an electric prod etched with runes that bled. "Then let him come," he murmured. "What greets him will end rebellions and hope." In the outskirts of Castle Iron Fist, the camp spread in ordered formations, fires guttering low. Banners stood still in the night wind, steel being hammered everywhere. The air smelled of pitch, oiled leather, hot iron, and sweat. Beyond the command tent, the armies breathed and labored as one vast machine preparing to strike. Inside the tent, a rough map of the keep lay pinned beneath daggers and weighted cups. Roland stood over it, gauntleted hands braced on the table. Sir Ambrose leaned close, helm tucked under one arm, his voice calm and lethal. "The western wall is weakest. Old stone. I say that would be the best place for a breach," Sir Gallant snorted, checking the edge of his greatsword. "How about a battering ram to the front door? I'll lead the charge personally." He grinned, but his eyes were hard. Sister Eliza knelt at the table's edge, fingers tracing sigils in the air, the faint scent of incense clinging to her robes. Whatever we do has to be quick. I'm sure the undead from the mire of the damned will be on our trail soon, she warned softly. Vitana tapped the map with a dagger point. Scouts report dragons, hydras, and beast folk had recently arrived as reinforcements. Rockland's beard twitched as he laughed once grimly. Albert Newton, Eric von Stromgard, Anthony Stone, and Lord Kilburn are Blackshire, Free Haven, the northern marches, the Misty Isles, and Silver Cove to prevent any flanks on us. Long as we keep tabs on that main undead force from the mire. Outside, the camp roared with life. Siege towers creaked as they were braced and reinforced, ropes rasping through calloused hands. Hammers rang on anvils, clang, clang, each strike showering sparks into the dark. Archers loosed shafts into the night, thuds marching across target boards. Knights sparred in the firelight, steel on steel ringing sharp and bright. Priests murmured prayers over the wounded and the willing, voices weaving with the hiss of quenched blades. Rockland cleared his throat and jabbed a thick finger at a shadowed line beneath the keep. Old service tunnels, he growled. Laid when my grandsire still had black in his beard. Stones thick, but not clever. Give me sappers and time, and I'll give you a hole. Sir Ambrose nodded at once. A quiet breach, he said, below the main walls. While the siege draws their eyes upward, Sister Eliza rose from her kneel, incense smoke curling around her hands. I can mask the work, she offered. Muffle sound, dull awards. If there are dead waiting below, I will keep them from answering. Her gaze was steady, unafraid. Sir Gallant cracked his knuckles and grinned without humor. Then we cut in from beneath their feet.
They'll never see us until it's too late.
Roland considered the plan, the weight of it settling. Outside, a siege tower groaned as it was hauled into place somewhere a priest's chant rose and fell. He nodded once. Done. Rockland takes his sappers. Ambrose leads the strike, Gallant and Eliza with him. He met each of their eyes in turn. You breach from below, climb into the heart of the keep, and hit Archibald from behind while the rest of us hammer the gates. Rockland bared his teeth in a feral grin. By stone and steel, he said, it's as good as ours. The council broke with purpose. The war had found its shape. Snow drifted. Somewhere beyond the horizon, two brothers refused sleep. Between them, Enroth lay like a breath held, waiting for who would tell it how to be let out.